very tough on people, you know.
How did you end up with Meisner?
A guy named Ricky Morse, Bobby Morse, Robert Morse, who did a stint on Broadway.
Robert Duvall is breaking his silence, and he's not sugarcoating anything. The iconic actor has finally revealed the names of 4 stars he couldn't stand working with, and his honesty is turning heads. From clashing with overblown egos to calling out lazy work ethics, Duvall holds nothing back as he shares what really went on behind the scenes. These aren't just petty feuds. They're raw, unfiltered truths from a Hollywood veteran who's had enough. Find out which big names made his list and why he'll never work with them again. Stanley Kubrick. Robert Duvall has worked with some of the greatest directors in film history. Over a career that spans more than 6 decades, he has acted in some of the most iconic movies of all time. From The Godfather to Apocalypse Now, Duvall has seen all sides of Hollywood. He's worked on small films, big epics, and everything in between. And through it all, he's stayed true to one thing: honesty in performance. He respects directors who treat actors like partners, not puppets. Those who let the actor breathe, take risks, and explore the truth of the scene. But there's one director Duvall never admired, one whose name carries a lot of weight, but in Duvall's mind never deserved the praise. That director is Stanley Kubrick. At 94 years old, Duvall is no longer holding back. He's lived a full life. He's earned the right to speak freely. And when he recently opened up about his feelings toward Kubrick, people were shocked, because Duvall didn't just offer a mild critique, he delivered a scathing review. He called Kubrick's directing style heartless, cold, even harmful. Kubrick was famous for shooting dozens and dozens of takes, sometimes even more than 100 for a single scene. He believed in perfection. Every shot had to be just right. Every word, every movement, every facial twitch had to match his vision. But Duvall couldn't understand that kind of process. To him, it made no sense. How does he know the difference between the first take and the 70th take? Duvall once asked. That question wasn't meant as a joke. It was a serious challenge to Kubrick's method. For Duvall, asking for that many takes meant the director didn't trust the actor. And if a director can't trust the actor, then something is very wrong. In Duvall's world, acting is about truth. It's about feeling. The moment has to be alive. It can't be calculated or controlled too much. If you squeeze it too hard, the magic dies. And that's what Duvall believes Kubrick did. He squeezed the life out of his scenes. He turned them into something robotic. They might look perfect on screen, but they didn't feel real. They didn't feel human. Kubrick's most famous films, The Shining, A Clockwork Orange, 2001, A Space Odyssey, are widely loved. They've been praised for decades. Many call them masterpieces, but Duvall had a very different opinion. He said The Shining featured one of the worst performances he had ever seen. And he wasn't talking about a minor character. He meant Jack Nicholson. Yes, Jack Nicholson, the same actor who gave us the unforgettable "Here's Johnny" moment. That scene is known by millions, but Duvall didn't buy it. He thought Nicholson looked like he was acting for the camera instead of living the moment. He called it a stage performance in a movie, over the top, loud, empty. He said something similar about Malcolm McDowell in A Clockwork Orange. Duvall believed McDowell's performance felt forced, like he was trying to match Kubrick's idea of the character instead of finding something real inside himself. The result, Duvall said, was a performance that looked interesting but had no soul. It didn't feel human. It didn't feel honest. To Duvall, these weren't just bad performances. They were symptoms of a bigger problem. Kubrick, in his view, didn't respect actors. He didn't see them as artists. He saw them as tools to shape his perfect picture. And when a director treats actors like that, the performance suffers. It loses its heart. Duvall isn't the only one who struggled with Kubrick's methods. Stories from his sets are legendary. Shelley Duvall, who starred in The Shining, went through a nightmare. Kubrick reportedly pushed her to the edge. He isolated her, yelled at her, forced her to do over 100 takes. The stress was so intense that she started losing her hair. Many believe her mental health never fully recovered from that experience. Duvall never worked directly with Kubrick, but he didn't need to. He paid attention. He watched the films. He spoke with the actors. And what he saw confirmed his fears. He saw a man obsessed with control. A man who cared more about image than feeling, more about precision than truth. And to Duvall, that was unforgivable. He had worked with directors who did it the right way. Francis Ford Coppola, for example. When Duvall worked on The Godfather, he felt safe. Coppola gave his actors space. He didn't force them into a box. He let scenes unfold naturally. That freedom brought magic. It created some of the most powerful moments in film history. Robert Altman was another one. He was even more relaxed. His sets were full of surprise. He let actors find the moment on their own. That looseness brought out real emotion, real discovery. Sidney Lumet, though more structured, also respected actors. He gave guidance, but he listened too. He treated acting as a collaboration, a shared journey. That's the kind of set Duvall loved. One where trust flowed both ways, where actors were given the room to make mistakes, take risks, and find the truth. Not a place where every blink was measured and every word rehearsed 100 times. Kubrick, to Duvall, broke that trust. He didn't allow freedom. He ruled his sets like a general. And in doing so, he stripped the heart out of his films. He might have made movies that looked beautiful, but Duvall thought they felt cold, lifeless, controlled to death. He once said that the mental toll from Kubrick's directing style could stay with an actor for years. Some never recovered. Some walked away from acting altogether. Duvall believed that kind of damage should not be praised. It should be questioned. It should be stopped. Even at 94, Duvall isn't afraid to speak the truth. He's seen too much. He's been around too long to stay quiet. And when it comes to the craft he loves, he doesn't pull punches. Acting is more than a job to him. It's a calling, a sacred art, and he will fight for it, even if that means going against a giant like Stanley Kubrick. Of course, many people disagree with him. They still love The Shining. They still see A Clockwork Orange as bold and daring, and that's fine. But Duvall is offering a view from the inside, from someone who knows the work, who knows the pain, who has lived through good sets and bad ones. He's not here to score points. He's here to protect the soul of acting. And Robert Duvall has spent a lifetime chasing that kind of magic. He knows what it looks like, and he knows what kills it. So when he says Kubrick's way was harmful, it's not coming from bitterness. It's coming from experience, from care, from love for the art. Stanley Kubrick may be remembered as a genius, but in Duvall's book, he's remembered as the man who missed the heart of the story, who missed the power of trust, and who, despite all the praise, failed the one test that mattered most to Duvall: respect for the craft. Because in the end, a film is more than just lighting and lenses. It's people, it's pain, it's truth. While Kubrick represented everything Duvall opposed in filmmaking philosophy, his next clash would be more personal and immediate, a head-to-head battle on the set of a Western classic. Henry Hathaway. Robert Duvall was still making a name for himself in Hollywood when he landed a role in True Grit, a Western film released in 1969. The movie would go on to become a classic in American cinema, celebrated for its bold storytelling and the unforgettable performance by John Wayne. But behind the scenes, things weren't nearly as smooth. For Duvall, the experience was one of the most difficult in his career, not because of the role itself, but because of the constant battles with the film's director, Henry Hathaway. At the time, Duvall was part of a new generation of actors who followed method acting. That meant he believed in fully stepping into the skin of a character, feeling what they felt, living in the moment, and responding with raw emotion rather than scripted movements. It wasn't about just saying lines or hitting marks. For Duvall, acting was personal. It had to feel real, or it wasn't worth doing. Hathaway, on the other hand, came from the old school of filmmaking. He was known for his firm hand on set, He believed directors were in charge and that actors should follow directions without question. He had worked with many stars before and expected total control. Hathaway didn't want debate. He wanted results. He gave clear instructions and expected actors to do what they were told. No more, no less. From the very beginning, the two men clashed. Duvall found Hathaway's approach cold and rigid. He felt stifled by the director's controlling style. Hathaway, in return, saw Duvall as rebellious and difficult. He didn't understand Duvall's process and didn't care to learn. The result? A set full of tension and frustration. In later interviews, Duvall didn't hold back when asked about the experience. "The director and I didn't get along," he admitted plainly. "I don't get along with a lot of directors." But this wasn't about ego. Duvall wasn't trying to be difficult for no reason. He simply needed creative space to do his job the way he knew best. When that space was denied, it turned every day on set into a challenge. Things got so uncomfortable that even John Wayne, the star of the film and a close friend of Hathaway, felt the need to step in. Wayne had been in the industry for decades and was loyal to the traditional way of doing things. He didn't like the arguing, and he didn't want Duvall's friction with Hathaway to slow down production. One day, Wayne approached Duvall directly and gave him a blunt warning. "If you don't stop arguing with Hathaway, I'm going to punch you out." That moment said it all. Duvall wasn't just clashing with the director, he was now going up against the most powerful voice on set. But Duvall didn't back down. He didn't want a fight, but he also didn't want to pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. He believed in the art of acting. He believed that truth on screen started with honesty behind the scenes. And if standing up for that meant upsetting people, so be it. Over time, the pressure took its toll. Duvall began to feel boxed in. Every day felt like a battle between his instincts and Hathaway's commands. He described the experience as exhausting and called it one of the hardest jobs he'd ever had. Even years later, when asked about Hathaway, he avoided talking about him. "We won't talk about him," he once said in an interview, clearly still bothered by the memory. But he never turned bitter. Duvall didn't hold grudges. Instead, he looked at the experience as a learning moment. It showed him what kind of artist he wanted to be, and more importantly, what kind of people he wanted to work with. He realized that he worked best in environments where he felt respected, not controlled, where his process was valued, not dismissed. The tension on the True Grit set didn't ruin the movie. In fact, the film turned out to be a major success. It even earned John Wayne his first and only Academy Award for Best Actor. But for Duvall, the memories were complicated. The movie may have done well, but the journey there was painful. It reminded him that acting wasn't just about the final product. It was about how you got there, who you worked with, and whether you were allowed to bring your true self to the role. Looking back, Duvall didn't sugarcoat the experience. He didn't pretend everything was fine. He didn't praise Hathaway or try to rewrite the story. He told the truth, even when it was uncomfortable. That honesty made him different from many in Hollywood, and it became a big part of his career moving forward. Robert Duvall went on to become one of the most respected actors of his generation. He starred in films like The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, and Tender Mercies, always bringing a sense of depth and realism to his roles. And through it all, he stayed true to his craft. He never forgot what it was like to feel trapped on a set. He never let go of the lesson he learned on True Grit, that great performances come from freedom, not fear. The bruising experience with Hathaway taught Duvall valuable lessons about standing his ground. But years later, he would face a different kind of creative tension, one that would ultimately lead to his greatest professional triumph. Bruce Beresford. Robert Duvall won an Academy Award for his role in Tender Mercies. It was a quiet film, full of feeling and depth. Many believe it showed Duvall at his best. But behind the camera, things were not always peaceful. The director, Bruce Beresford, had a very different way of working. He liked calm sets. He wanted a soft and gentle tone. Duvall, on the other hand, came in with fire. He had strong ideas. He wanted the film to feel real, even if that meant chaos now and then. From the start, their views clashed. Duvall believed in full control over his character. He knew what Max Sledge, the washed-up country singer, should sound like, move like, and feel like. Barerisford respected that, but he also had his own ideas. He wanted to shape the film carefully. He believed in subtle storytelling. He did not always want loud emotion or long silences. He wanted a balance, but Duvall was not one to back down when he felt something was right. Duvall later said that their fights came from care. They both wanted the film to work, but they just had different ways of getting there. Sometimes Duvall would walk off set if he thought a scene lacked honesty. He would argue if the lighting felt too staged. He even helped block scenes and adjust lines. Some crew members said it felt like Duvall was co-directing at times. He did not want anything fake in the film. Barerisford did not like conflict, but he allowed space for Duvall's intensity. He knew Duvall had a vision. Even if they clashed, he saw the passion behind the push. There were no big fights that broke the production. Still, many days felt tense. One moment it was quiet, the next full of sharp talks and silence. But the work kept going. Their main problem was tone. Duvall wanted the story to carry raw pain. He wanted Max Sledge's past to linger in every scene. He saw the story as a slow healing. Barerisford wanted a lighter touch in some places. He thought the pain should be felt, but not always shown. They debated over how much silence was too much. They talked about how to shoot certain scenes, like the one where Max sings again for the first time. Duvall felt it needed stillness. Barerisford wanted a little more movement. In the end, they found middle ground. The pacing was another issue. Duvall believed some scenes needed space to breathe. He felt the power of long pauses. Barerisford sometimes cut scenes shorter than Duvall liked. It became a back and forth over what to keep and what to let go. Duvall was careful about emotion. He hated anything that felt pushed or fake. Even a simple look had to feel real. If it didn't, he would say so. He wanted every beat to reflect Max Sledge's quiet struggle. Despite these issues, both men kept working. The tension never broke the film. In fact, it helped it grow. The creative push and pull gave the film more weight. Duvall pushed for deep truth. Barerisford worked to hold the film together. In later interviews, Barerisford said Duvall could be hard to work with, but also praised his deep care. He said Duvall brought something rare to the set. He made everyone better. The cast and crew often found themselves in the middle. Some leaned toward Duvall, feeling his honesty. Others stood by Barerisford, who stayed calm in storms. But most agreed that the friction made the work stronger. Each man pulled in a different direction, but somehow the film stayed upright. Duvall never spoke badly of Barerisford in public. He did not list him among the people he disliked. That alone said a lot. The conflict came from the craft, not from ego. After the film was done, both men seemed to move on. They did not work together again, but they also did not carry anger. Duvall called the role one of his most personal. Barerisford said he respected Duvall's drive, even if it caused trouble. The Oscar win was a moment of joy, but also peace. It showed that their fight had created something lasting. Duvall's strong ideas shaped the film in many ways. His scenes feel full of weight, even when he says nothing. He worked with quiet looks and small gestures. That kind of acting needed trust. Barerisford gave him space, even when it caused stress. They both wanted the best, even if it took heat to get there. Some reports say Duvall rewrote parts of his dialogue. Others say he pushed for certain edits in the final cut. Barerisford never fully confirmed these stories, but he also never denied them. He simply said the process was tough but worth it. He gave credit to Duvall for making the character feel alive. He said few actors give so much to one role. Duvall often spoke about honesty in acting. He hated false emotion. He believed in deep truth, even if it hurt. That belief was clear on this set. He took risks, knowing they might not land. He wanted every scene to feel like real life. He brought that same passion to other roles. but few tested him like this one. There were no big blow-ups that ended the project. The tension stayed focused. The set did not fall apart. People kept working. Scenes got shot. And slowly, the film came together. By the end, the stress felt worth it. The story had weight. The emotions felt earned. The film did not shout. It whispered. And those whispers stayed with people. Many say the film worked because of the friction. If one man had backed down, the film might have lost its edge. But both held their ground. And that gave the story more truth. Duvall shaped his role with care. Barerisford shaped the film with grace. Together, they made something better than either man could have done alone. Duvall later said Tender Mercies was one of the hardest shoots of his life, but he also called it one of the most honest. That balance made it special. He never praised Barerisford with warm words, but he gave him credit. He knew the film needed both of them. Even with all the tension, they finished it. Bruce Barerisford and Robert Duvall may not have worked together again, but they left behind a film that mattered. Their push and pull gave it soul. Their fights were not about ego. They were about art. And in the end, that shared goal made Tender Mercies something rare. For Duvall, the role of Max Sledge still stands out. It shows what he could do when given space to shape a role. And it shows what happens when two strong voices try to tell one story. The road was rough, but the result was gold. While his battles with directors were fought on sets with cameras rolling, Duvall's most scathing critique would be reserved for someone who wielded power from the sidelines. A critic whose pen he believed could destroy what actors spent their lives building. Pauline Kyle. Robert Duvall had many battles during his long career, but one of his sharpest feuds was with a woman who never stepped on set. In a 2017 interview, Duvall said it plainly. She was a fraud. He was talking about Pauline Kyle, one of the most famous film critics of the 20th century. That quote was not a throwaway insult. It was the final word in a long, bitter divide that started decades earlier, with a movie that gave Duvall one of the biggest moments of his life. When Tender Mercies came out in 1983, it earned Duvall his first Academy Award for Best Actor. He played a washed-up country singer trying to find peace in a quiet Texas town. The performance was subtle, grounded, and deeply emotional. Audiences connected with the quiet pain in his eyes, but Pauline Kyle saw it differently. In her review, she dismissed the film's slow pace and soft tone. She said the movie lacked energy and felt like it was trying too hard to be meaningful. For Duvall, that was personal. He had fought hard to make Tender Mercies feel real. He did not want big drama or flashy camera tricks. He wanted to show what a man feels when he has lost everything. And he believed critics like Kyle could not understand that, because they were chasing something else entirely. Duvall and Kyle did not only disagree about one movie, they saw the art of acting and storytelling in completely different ways. Kyle often loved movies that had style, punch, and sharp editing. She praised directors who made bold choices and pushed limits. She wrote with fire, and her reviews could be poetic or brutal. For her, a great film had to feel alive on the surface, but Duvall cared more about what was beneath the surface. He believed in emotion that lived under the skin. His performances were quiet, careful, and built on years of training and observation. He admired actors who disappeared into their roles. He once said he studied real people constantly, even in diners or on the street. For him, honesty was more important than sparkle. That difference in values showed in how they viewed film history. One of their biggest divides was over the movie Bonnie and Clyde. Kyle called it a game changer. She said it opened a new door for American cinema with its mix of violence and attitude. Her essay on the film helped launch her career as a critic. She saw it as a bold break from the past. Duvall, on the other hand, thought the movie was phony. He did not believe the characters or the world they lived in. To him, it felt more like a show than a story. That clashed with everything he stood for. He wanted films that felt like life, not like a theater act. So when Kyle praised Bonnie and Clyde, He saw it as more proof that she misunderstood what real acting looked like. But Duvall's problem with Kyle went deeper than one movie. He believed she represented something dangerous. Critics who judged art without truly understanding the work it took to make it. He once said, "She did not understand actors." That line carried real weight coming from someone like him. Duvall trained under Sanford Meisner, one of the greatest acting teachers in history. He believed acting was sacred, something to be protected, and in his view, Kyle and critics like her treated it like a game. He was not alone in feeling this way. Many actors have spoken out against critics over the years, saying they often miss the point. But Duvall's anger was louder because he felt it so personally. He spent months preparing for roles, living in character, digging deep into people's pain. When someone brushed that aside with a few sharp words in a column, it felt like an insult to the whole craft. And it was not only Kyle's opinion that bothered him, it was the influence she had. Her words shaped how people saw films. If she dismissed something, studios took notice. If she praised a movie, it could boost careers. Duvall saw that power and believed it needed to be used with care. To him, Kyle used it with flair instead. Still, it would be unfair to say he hated all critics. He respected those who took the time to understand acting and looked deeper than the surface. His fight was with a kind of criticism that he felt was shallow, loud, and focused on the wrong things. He wanted people to look past lighting and camera angles and pay attention to the human story unfolding on screen. Kyle was not known for pulling punches either. Her writing style was sharp and full of energy. She could destroy a movie with a single line. She often targeted performances that she found boring or fake. In Tender Mercies, she said the film moved too slowly and felt like it was wrapped in cotton. For fans of the movie, that review felt out of touch. For Duvall, it was unforgivable. Their feud was not only about taste, it was about values. Duvall came from a world where actors were craftsmen. He saw himself like a carpenter or a mason, shaping something carefully piece by piece. He had little patience for people who judged without building anything themselves. That is why Kyle's name still triggered him even decades later. He never forgot what she wrote. And when asked about her in interviews, even late in life, his tone turned sharp. That kind of long memory showed how deep the wound had gone. Kyle had moved on. She passed away in 2001, but for Duvall, the frustration never fully healed. In a way, their clash was a symbol of something bigger. It was the fight between people who make art and people who write about it, between emotion and analysis, between subtle truth and loud opinion. Duvall was the kind of actor who lived through his roles. Kyle was the kind of critic who lived through her reviews. The irony is that both of them cared deeply about movies. Both of them wanted to protect something they loved, but they came at it from opposite sides. And in the case of Tender Mercies, those sides could never be bridged. Duvall's words about Kyle might sound harsh, but they came from a lifetime of doing the work, facing the camera, and digging deep into pain, silence, and redemption. He believed in storytelling that was patient and true, and he spent decades fighting to keep that alive. Robert Duvall never held back, even at 94. From legends to critics, he said what many wouldn't. If you enjoyed this dive into Hollywood's hidden tensions, like, share, and subscribe for more bold stories from behind the scenes.